Now we are recording. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this moment as we are together. And we are here in this wonderful slide. So I am now recording, I think, yes? I think I am.
Yes.
Okay. So I am recording. This is the skyline of Airfort, 1493, history of the world. This is what the city, the skyline. You see you see the cathedral, and then St. Severins. And so here we have this wonderful moment. Alrighty. These are the universities. These are the universities. And we looked at this. We looked last week. If you look the arrows, you see that the University of Airfort was created in 1379. So Luther is attending a very reputable university. It's a major moment. You see that at the same time, you see Heidelberg being created in 1386. University in Krakow called the Jagiellonian, 1364. So the 14th century births these universities, and Luther is privileged to attend the University of Erfurt to study law. Here's an individual. This is a copy of the History of the World. We don't know who owned it, but this person was obviously a person of wealth, because they had sent their copy to a rubricator. That is an individual who will color in the woodcuts. You do not entrust this to your children. You've spent a great deal of money on a particular book. This is a book you would have spent a great deal of money on, and you then send it to a rubricator. Rubrics, we know what rubrics are. They are in our hymnal, Evangelical Lutheran Worship. They were in Lutheran Book, Lutheran LBW, Lutheran Book of Worship. Rubric is simply the Latin word for red. So a rubricator is an individual who had a huge pot of red ink and a quill and a brush and pens, and they were able to then artistically color in these woodcuts. So here we are. Here is the cathedral where Luther was ordained to the priesthood. He will be ordained to the priesthood, not yet, and then St. Severins. And these are all of the churches that you see in Erfurt. Erfurt has a population of about 20,000 people. 800 people are clerics. They are individuals who are in holy orders.
No, man.
And what you have here is Luther. This is the city. I have to work on this. This is the city with the largest population that Luther will ever live in. Okay, so when you talk about an urban experience, did Luther understand the urban experience? Yes, he understood it from Erfurt. Erfurt has a population of 20,000 individuals. This is the largest city he will ever live in during his life. Wittenberg does not have that population. They only have 2,000 people. So it's a very small place. This is the largest urban center that he will live in his life, during his lifetime. So here we are. And so this is where we left off last week. This is where we left off last week. This is where he shows up. This is where he shows up. And Luther has made a specific choice to come to this place. And this place is important. Okay, so let's walk through this place and look at what he is now getting into. So he knocks at this door. He is knocking at this door, and at this door, he will then ask to be admitted. He will be asked to be admitted to become a monk. Every religious order is there in Erfurt. Every religious order is in Erfurt, but he picks this one. All right. So let's talk about this. So when he is admitted into the courtyard, he will knock on these doors, and the abbot will come out and ask his wish. And he will say that I wish to become a monk. So this is the black cloister of observant Augustinians. Okay. Black cloister of observant Augustinians. This is what we call a mendicant order. Mendicants were the orders that believed that poverty, taking an oath of poverty, was very important. Okay, not every order took that particular vow. So this order believed that there was poverty, and living in poverty, in evangelical apostolic poverty, was important to their formation. Okay, So Luther comes here. So he will now knock on the door and ask to be admitted. So this is where he's going to live for a year, in this place. He is not admitted to the cloister yet. He lives in the guest house for a year. And those of us who entered the pastorate of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, or as I did in the Lutheran Church in America, the former church, you went through a background check. We all go through what is called a background check. And Luther will live in this house, which is on the edge of the cloister, for a year for a background check. So if you experienced a background check because you have entered the Lutheran Church, the pastorate, it has a medieval precedent. They're going to check for several things. Number one, you are free of disease. Okay. Number two, you are free of debt. Number three, you are free of wife and children. Number four, you are a free person and not a serf who is bound to an owner. Okay? So he has to live here for a year while they go around and ask some questions as to who he is. Who is this person, Martin Luther? And he wishes to join us. All right. So now what will he do as he's living in the guest house? He will start to participate in the life of this monastery. This is the monastery in Airfort. It's there. We know exactly where Luther lived. This is the inner garden of the Augustinian monastery in Airfort, and you see this wonderful walkway that circulates, so you can move around the monastery, and you can get between the buildings without having to expose yourself to any of the inclement weather. So this is what these hallways go around the entire monastery, and Luther would be very familiar with this particular corridor, because he would walk it many times. So here he is participating in the life of this monastery. It's called the Black Cloister of Observant Augustinians. All right, so he cannot go up this staircase yet. This is the staircase he will walk up once he is admitted as a monk. Right now, he's living through this year of being checked in terms of, is he free? Is he free of debt, free of disease, free of marriage? Who is this individual? But here is the church. This is the church of the cloister where Luther will take his vows. We don't believe that you could actually see the church at this point. There would have been a wall. There would have been a wall that separated the chancel from the actual church itself, because this was a cloistered order. All right. Now let's take a look up. Let's look up. If we look up at the ceiling, it's going to explain a lot of things that are going on here. You see this ceiling? This is the ceiling within the cloister church. You notice it's not decorated. They take poverty very seriously. It is very plain. They leave the unvarnished, the unpainted woodwork there. In other words, if it was a wealthy monastery, they might have wonderful illustrations up there. They would have decorated it. They would have plastered it over. They would have made it stunning. This is an order that takes poverty very seriously. So we will not decorate the ceiling within the church of the observant order, of the observant Augustinians. So this is what it looks like today. If you were to go there, you're more than welcome to walk in. You can see the church. You can see the church. You can see the chancel. Here we are. This is the place. This is the place. Luther would have sat in the chairs, those chairs that are in front of the choir stalls, for a year of his life as he began to enter the life of the observant Augustinians. If you notice over on the right-hand side of the screen, there's this wonderful stonework that's embedded in the wall. There's a little green mat on there. That's where the priest sat, the monk sat, that was going to preside at Mass. And there's the altar. Where Mass would have been said. So here, the observant Augustinians gathered. All right, and this is what Luther would have been very familiar with. So here we are. Here is the altar, and there's a gravestone in front of the altar. There we go. There's a gravestone there. And that gravestone will become very important because when Luther takes his vows, he will lie flat on the floor, face down on that particular gravestone. That's how you took your vows. You laid flat on your face, hands extended. Now, if you watch the most recent Luther movie with somebody named Feeney or something, he does not lie there. When they were making that film, he refused to lie there because it was too much for him. So he laid down in the sanctuary. He refused to lie on that particular place. So it's a very interesting moment that I happened to pick up when I was there inspecting the place, walking through all of this in 214. So this is where Luther will live and serve. So here we are, up and down this hallway. We serve, we live in the guest house for a year as all of this is now checked out. Who we are we free of debt? Are we free of wife? Are we free of disease? Or can we take our vows? And so this is what the monastery looks like in Airfort of the Observant Augustinians. And we will walk and we will walk here. And then after a year, Luther walks down this corridor and he's going to take a left turn. He comes into this room. This room is very important. It is called the warm room. It is called the warm room simply because there's only one room in the entire monastery that is heated.
Warm.
Just one room. It is called the warm room. And in certain monastic communities here in the United States, they will say, oh, we're going to meet in the warm room. All rooms are heated. All rooms may be air conditioned, but they still refer to one room as the warm room because this is the one room where they had a fire guard. So this is where Luther would come when they had meetings, when they would have their meetings. And Luther comes into this room and he will lie on the floor here to begin his monastic career. He has been accepted into the order. And so what are they going to do to him? Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to shave his head. He's going to receive the tonsure. That is, the back of your head is shaved and you are bald. This was a mark. This was a mark. They take off your monastic robe, but you couldn't get rid of your tonsure. It was your mark of identity that you were a monk. And this is one of the early paintings of the monk, Martin Luther. So he receives his tonsure and he receives this. This is why they are called the Black Cloister of Observant Augustinians. He receives this wool tunic. Okay, this is it. This is what they will wear outwardly. This is their tunic. This identifies them as the Observant Augustinians. And so a mendicant order, what will he do? He will go through the streets of Airfort and he will beg for a donation. He will ask for a donation, just like he did when he was in Eisenach in school, panem propter deum, bread on behalf of God. So now he will go and he will beg. He will beg for his daily bread. That's what mendicant orders did. They begged for donations. He will wear this, and hence why this is called the Black Cloister of Observant Augustinians. So now he comes down, he comes into the church, he passes the staircase, he comes in, he passes this, and he will now lie on this floor. He will lie on this floor and he will take his vows on top of this tombstone of a certain individual. Here we are. This is what it looks like. This is where Luther will lie flat on his face, arms extended in the shape of a cross, face down, and he will begin to take his vows to be a monk. So who is this person? This person it's an interesting moment. The person that is buried here in this particular cloister is Johannes Zacharios. And this is going to surface back into Luther's life because Zacharios was a very famous individual. He was a very famous individual because he was one of the individuals who prosecuted Jan Hus a century earlier. Huss was accused of being a heretic, and Zacharios was one of the chief prosecutors. John Huss was given a safe passage to and from the council that was guaranteed him, but that was broken. And so when he was condemned as a heretic, and here is the burning of John Huss in 1415 at the Council of Constance in 1415. He was not allowed to return home. And so Luther lies on this particular stone as he takes his vows. And a number of people had said throughout church history that Zacharios moved too quickly because Huss was guaranteed safe passage to return to Prague. Huss was allowed 60 days to think over his position to recant, and that was all revoked. He was burned at the stake. And this is a famous woodcut. This is a famous woodcut of the burning of John Huss. Okay, so there were individuals who were a part of the order of observant Augustinians who believed that Zacharios had moved just a little too quickly. So there's this tension here. So here's Luther. Here is Luther. So now Luther is admitted to the monastery. He now has this wonderful room. This is now in the monastery of the observant Augustinians. And here's his glorious room, his 5-star room. All right. So let's walk into the room and see what he has. That's it. These are the furnishings. This is it. It is a straw mattress thrown on the floor with a simple cover, a pillow of straw. That is it. When you enter the order of the observant Augustinians, you take poverty seriously. So let's look at the room from the outside. Oh, look at that. Notice there's this lattice work or a screen. He has no privacy. At any moment, anybody can look in. He has no privacy. He has given that up. And if you look at this door, there's the door he can shut, but there is no lock. So this is the order of the observant Augustinians. They take their life very seriously when they enter the monastery. This is one of the rooms that Luther lived in. There it is. That's it. That's all he has when he gets his own room. Heated? No. Air conditioned? Well, in winter, sure. It's very air conditioned, very air conditioned. So this is his life when he enters that monastery in Airfort. So here is Luther in one of the famous paintings of the young Luther. You see him in his robe, the black robe that he will wear. He has his belt and he has a book. And so he has his tonsure. The back of his head has been sheared. So here is his life. This is his life in the monastery. So what does he do now that he's in the monastery? Well, this bell tells him what to do. This is the bell that hung in the tower and called these monks to prayer. So let's see. Well, Luther will crawl off his straw mattress, stand up, put on his black tunic. He will head into the church at 2 a.m. in the morning. Did you hear this, people of God? It is 2 a.m. in the morning, and he will head into there to start the say matins, and they will recite psalms and they will sing hymns. He will go back to sleep for a few moments, and then the bell will call him at 6 a.m. for the prime. Prime is the first hour, the first canonical hour, and it is at 6 a.m. When they finish prime, they will then have the cloister will hold mass at 7 a.m. He will then have some lecture, assigned duties. He will be called by that bell to terce, which is the third hour. Terce is the Latin word. Terce, the third hour, 9 a.m., again to come to prayer, to read the psalms, to sing the hymns. And then we will be back at the 6th hour, which is 12 noon. We will be back there at the 9th hour, 3 p.m. We will be there for Vespers at about 5 p.m. Then we will do Compline at about 9 p.m. So this is life. This is life. Here we are. So he will say matins at 2 a.m., prime at 6 a.m., mass at 7 a.m., third hour of prayer, 9 a.m., sect, the 6th hour of prayer, 12 noon, Nun, the 9th hour, which is 3 p.m. when Jesus dies, Vespers at 6 p.m., Compline at 9 p.m. So this is a life of prayer, reading, and work. So this is what Luther will do as he has entered now this monastery in 1505. This is his life. And what is he trying to do? Well, he is trying to follow, he's trying to follow what he has been taught in his catechism. You do the best you can. You do what is in them, or you do what lies within you. You pray, you hope, you fast, you do all of these good works. You do all of these good works, okay? And so this is how this phrase that is in Latin at the top of the screen, this is what they believed. You do what is in them. You do what lies within you. You do the best you can. You do the best you can in your fasting and your prayers as you work on getting close to God. Who's responsible for salvation? Well, salvation lies within us. This is a process of perfecting ourselves. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to climb up a ladder of perfection. You get better and better every day with all of these prayers. You do what is within you. You pray and you work and you hope that is good enough. So here we are. These are the famous two churches in Airfort. They're on top of a hill. To the left is the Cathedral, and to the right is St. Severin's Church. So Luther is going to climb these stairs in 1507. He's been now a monk for 2 years, and they decide he can be a priest. So he's going to walk through this door. Here we are. This is the door. This is the door that would lead you into the cathedral. And you have here these wonderful relics. These are the wonderful relics that Luther would have seen as he walked into this cathedral. Here are the remains of Elizabeth of Thüringen, a very famous and popular saint from the Middle Ages. And so all of these are the relics that were in this cathedral. Here it is rebuilt after World War II, but this is where Luther will be ordained to the priesthood in 1507. So here we are, Airfort. We are Airfort. He is now a priest. He is now a priest, and he has entered the Black Cloister of Observant Augustinians. He sits here in this chapel of the Observant Augustinians. These are the stained glass windows that he would have looked at. And if you notice here, there's a very interesting picture here of these two dogs, but they're clustered around a rose. This rose will become Luther's insignia, the Luther rose, that some of us learned about when we were in confirmation and catechism, the Luther rose. And we think this might have been one of the moments of inspiration for this, the Luther rose. So here it is, the Luther rose that is there in those windows that he would have looked at, when he was in prayer, in the chapel at Airfort. So now he is ready to say Mass. This is the moment of the priest. He would have read this book. We have this book within the in the rare book room of the library at the Cross Memorial Library. So he would have read this book. He would have been versed in how you do the Mass. Okay, here we are. Here's what you do. This is how you do this. It is very, very important you get this down. So Luther's Mass, all right, was May 2nd. All right, May 2nd, 1507. So he is now ready to say his first Mass. All right. This is where he would sit. You can actually sit in that spot where Luther sat on that day, May 2nd, 1507. And then he goes up to the altar where he is going to preside. Now, remember, I said, you're doing your best. You're doing the best. You're working. You're showing God that you have the gifts and graces. You're going to perfect what is within you. And now you come to say your Mass. And who is responsible for salvation? Well, salvation lies within us. And it's a process of perfecting ourselves. So now, Luther. All right. So we're going to stop here for a second. So what happens in that Mass is that Luther actually, at the moment of his consecration, Luther actually has a panic attack.
He freaks out.
He has a panic attack. And so he has this panic attack. Okay, that's where that ends. All right. He has a panic attack. His father actually shows up for his first Mass on May 2nd. He brings 20 of his colleagues with him. So he is a very successful business person. He brings his colleagues with him, and Luther has a panic attack. Why does Luther have a panic attack? Because once again, he's in front of God and he has no mediator and he's afraid. He's afraid of God, okay? So he has a panic attack and his father is very disturbed and angry with him and leaves. So here we have Luther doing all of these prayers, saying all of these prayers, saying the Psalms. He would, within 2 weeks, you would have read all 150 Psalms. He's done this for years. He is now ordained as a priest. He says his first Mass and he has a panic attack because he's in the presence of the Almighty. He's just consecrated and the body and blood of Christ is in his hands and he's afraid and he has a panic attack. All right. So let's stop the chronology here for a moment. We'll pick up with that next time around. So let's start talking about another theme. Let's talk about another theme, a theme that is important to Luther's theology. Do you all see this right now?
No.
Yes?
No.
No. All right. So what I think has happened here, let's see here. I am on my, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to share my screen. So sorry. There we go. Here we go. All right. Now I have to condense this so I can get to slide from current slide. How's that?
Great.
All right. If you are, as Lutherans, promise tonight was to talk about, we shift from chronology, his biography. We'll pick up with that next week. Each week we'll move a little further. Right now he has said his first Mass, May 2nd, 1507. He has a panic attack. He's in front of God and he has no mediator. He's afraid. Okay, there it is. So we'll put that on hold. Now we're going to pick up with a theme that is important in our Lutheran confessions, in our Lutheran understanding of how God deals with us. This is a painting. This is a painting executed by Lucas Cranach Sr. And you're going to see his portrait shortly. So this is a famous painting of what is called law and gospel. Law is on the left-hand side. The gospel is on the right-hand side. Okay? So let me take you through this painting because Luther is very much into images. Okay? So hold on. Here we go. All right. Here's, well, let's see. How can I wish? Yeah. All right. Let's come back here. All right. This is the law and the gospel. So in a painting, what you want to do right now is focus on the center. And in the center, there is a tree. The tree is important. On the left-hand side, you see branches with no leaves. It's dead. On the right-hand side of the tree, you see leaves. So the law brings death. The gospel brings life. And that's what Cranach is taking this important theological concept for Lutheranism, and he puts it on canvas. He makes an image of it. So let's walk through some of these images, all right? We'll get there. This is what it looks like in 1533. If you look at the 1533 title page of a Bible, you notice that when you get behind, you look at the placard right in the center where you give the information of the title page, but you see a tree. And you see the left-hand side, there are no leaves, law. On the right-hand side, you see leaves, and there is life. So this is a very important image, and it will move across Europe, and it is a part of our Lutheranism. So let's come back. All right, so let's look at this. So here we have the Bible, 1533. We're going to talk about the Bible next week. Here's 1533. We have this explanation of this little, I love this. I love this. You see this shield that is hanging from this tree. It gives you the title, the translator, the place where it's published, and the date when it's published. Okay, great. So let's move beyond that and look at the title page. Here we are on the left-hand side of this tree. We're at the bottom, the very bottom left-hand corner of the title page, what do you see? An individual holding a tablet. That's Moses. That's Moses. And you see behind Moses a tomb and a corpse, because the law condemns us. The law condemns us and brings death. It tells us we are not perfect. We are far from perfect. And in God's eyes, we have deserved death. Okay. So as you move up the left-hand side of the title page, what do you see? Our ancestors, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, the reason for all of this. There they are in the Garden of Eden. And what are they doing? They are eating the forbidden fruit. Okay? They are eating the forbidden fruit, and sin enters the world. Sin shatters the relationship that we have with God. So let's move on. You go to the top of the title page of the 1533 Bible. This is the illustration by Cranach that has now been adapted for print. And you see Moses receiving the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are our mirror. They are, as in our catechism, they remind us of our sickness. We are not perfect. It's like looking in a mirror, and we see all the blemishes, all the fault lines, all of the things that are wrong with us. And so this is what is there on that page, on that title page. Now you come over to the right side, the lower right side of the corner. What do you see? At the base of the tree is an individual. That's us. On the one side is Moses, the left-hand side, holding the 10 Commandments. On the right-hand side, you see an individual who's talking. That's John the Baptist. And John the Baptist is the one who's pointing to Jesus. Where is Jesus? Jesus is not in the tomb. Jesus is called from the tomb. Jesus brings life into this world. That is the good news. That is part of the gospel that we preach. And that is what Cranach is so brilliantly putting on canvas that will be transferred to a woodcut and used on title page of a Bible. In the middle of the right-hand side, the crucifixion. Here is the Holy One dying for the sins of the whole world for all time. The sins of the whole world for all eternity are laid on his shoulder, and he is the sacrifice. He is the perfect sacrifice given to God. That is the good news. And at the top of this page, you see the Annunciation. This is the angels coming to Mary to say, you are going to give birth to the Holy One. You are the chosen one to bring the Savior into the world. That's gospel. And so now we have in this moment, and what I wanted to show you here, if you look to the left-hand side, this image got transferred over into an English Bible in 1562. In 1562, it crossed the English Channel, and they used it in an English Bible, and they simply translated all of that and put it on a Bible. But you see here, you see this wonderful illustration, a painting that Cranach executed that described an important moment in our Lutheran understanding of who we are. Law, gospel. The law shows us our sickness. The gospel is the good news of Jesus coming into our lives. Here is the executor of the painting, the painter himself, Lucas Cranach the Elder. And you see he's born in 1472 and dies in 1553. He outlives Luther. He and Luther are good friends. Lucas Cranach is in Wittenberg. He is an entrepreneur, a businessman. Luther is a godfather to one of his children, and Cranach is a godfather to one of Luther's children. So they are very connected. They are very connected in the city of Wittenberg. He has a print shop. He has a pharmacy, which is very helpful when you have a print shop because you need to make your own paints. So he's going to bring in all of the elements into his pharmacy. He's also going to administer medicine. He also owns a paper mill. So he is an entrepreneur. He has it all. He is a very successful business person. And so here's Lucas Cranach. And this is the painting in living color, Technicolor, in Technicolor. So let's look at it. So let's look at it very carefully. All right. Let's look at this particular painting. All right. So you look at the center, you see a tree. the left-hand side of the tree, there are no leaves. And this is the law. So how is the law depicted by Cranach? Well, at the bottom, you see individuals. You see individuals dressed there and a person holding the tablet of the commandments. The commandments condemn us. The commandments, the law shows us our shortcomings. And the commandments lead us to death. You see Adam and Eve under the tree in the Garden of Eden. And then you see the judging Jesus at the top of this particular painting, where you see the sword coming out of the one ear and the lily on the other ear. Those condemned to hell, those rewarded with heaven. That's the law. But when you look on the right-hand side of that particular page, you have a person who is naked. That's us. That's us. What do we bring to the salvation process? Luther has finally realized nothing. We bring nothing. Not our good intentions, not our good works. We bring nothing. To illustrate that, Cranach paints a person with no clothing. We have nothing that we bring. And there is John the Baptist pointing. And what is he pointing to? He's pointing to Jesus. And so in the upper right-hand corner, it's very difficult to see in this particular illustration, but you have the Annunciation that God is coming. God will become incarnate and take on flesh. You see the crucifixion, you see the resurrection there depicted. And John the Baptist is pointing, saying, there is the Lamb of God. That's the gospel according to John. And then below that, below the crucified Christ, you see the Lamb. And what do you see? The Lamb is standing on top of the skeleton and these little monsters. The Lamb has conquered death and the realm of death. And that is what Cranach is presenting here. So here we are. And Cranach's son, Lucas Cranach the Younger, became an artist as well. And he painted the altar that is in St. Mary's Church in Wittenberg. And he is here dressed in bright red. And he is handing, it is communion. And Lucas Cranach the Younger is handing Luther the wine, which is very, very interesting. So we'll get to that. I promise you, we'll get back to that. But here's the 1541. Here's the 1541 title page of the Luther Bible. We have this in the Rare Book Room. This is from the Rare Book Room in the Cross Memorial Library. So let's walk through this title page and review one more time what I just said. We have all of the information, the Bible, the Holy Bible in German, newly appointed by Dr. Martin Luther, permitted at the grace of the elector. And we're going to talk about the elector, and it's printed in Wittenberg. So here we are. This is what it looks like. This is the title pages of the 1534, where we have a little something else going on, but we're going to focus on the 15. We're going to focus on the right-hand side, the 1541. What do you see right in the center? A tree. So what's on the tree? On the left-hand side, I have branches with no leaves. On the right-hand side, I have branches with leaves. One side is death, one side is life. Law, gospel. This is how we work and understand our Lutheranism. So here we are on the left-hand side in the upper corner there, and there is God. There is God, and God is upset because the Israelites have worshipped idols.
I've seen enough, buddy.
So there we have this wonderful moment of God, the judgment of the Israelites in the desert. The serpents are coming. The serpents are coming because they have failed to keep the commandments of the Holy One, and the law brings death. Here they are. Here are the Israelites suffering as a result of their idolatry. And there's the bronze serpent on the cross that Moses has lifted up. If you look at it, you will be redeemed. You will be saved. You will be healed. Here we have this serpent on this cross. And here we have a depiction of Adam and Eve in the garden, and they have eaten of the fruit. They have brought sin into the world. They have disobeyed God. And at the bottom, boom, you have judgment. This is what the law does to us. It judges us. It says that we are condemned to death. And so we are thrown into the pit. There we have Moses holding the tablets of the 10 Commandments and the prophets, and we are condemned to death. If you look very carefully into the flames of the 1541 Luther Bible. On its title page, the person that's condemned is the Pope. It's the three-tiered tiara there. And is, yes, it was not politically correct, but there it is. There it is. So now you see Moses holding the tablets, the commandments. There we have Moses and the prophets who preach this. This is the law. And there it is. The law condemns us to death. That is our sickness. But then we come to the right-hand side and we look at the gospel. The gospel begins when the angel comes to Mary and says, "You, Hail Mary, full of grace, blessed are you among women. Blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus." That is good news. God's coming. God is coming. There it is. And there is Mary. There is Mary, receiving the good news that she will be the one that brings God to earth. And there we have the resurrected Christ coming out of the tomb with the spear, killing death, destroying it. There he is on the cross. There he is on the cross. And John the Baptist is pointing to a person and saying, there's the Lamb of God. This is the good news. This one died for our sins. This is the gospel. And there we have the Lamb of God. The Lamb is at the base of the cross. And this is the Lamb of God that John the Baptist was pointing to in the gospel according to John. So here we have this wonderful moment of Jesus, law and gospel, as it is portrayed in artwork, that will be transferred to the title pages of German Bibles and then eventually cross the English Channel and appear on an English Bible. So here we are, people of God. There we have it. The two upper hand corners, the one on the left, the judgment of God for the idolatry of the Israelites, the announcement to Mary that she will be the bearer of Jesus, the incarnate word. Here is sin coming through Adam and Eve. Here is the glorious resurrection where the gospel and the forgiveness of God comes in Christ who destroys death. And then we have those condemned, the condemnation that the law brings with it. But here we have the freedom and everlasting life as proclaimed in the gospel. So people
somewhere in the middle of what they did today. I got sidetracked with last week's.
All right, well, I'm going to stop this for a second. Let me just put this back down and I am going to, let's see, where am I? Where am I in this? All right. Technology. Here we are. There we are. I am going to pause going to stop the recording so we can talk. And